Good afternoon. My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you who are not familiar with the organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Compliance and Data Privacy Regulations in 2025, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. Please save the date for our next cyber webinar, Cyber Insurance for Micro Businesses. That's planned for May 15th at 12:30, and I'll drop that registration down into the chat momentarily. We are recording today's presentation, and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted and the chat feature is turned off. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box and we will address them at the end of the session. We have also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Kiana Gainey. Kiana is a 20-plus year IT and cybersecurity industry veteran and has served as Chief Executive Officer for SecureTech 360, located in Springfield, Virginia, since its inception in 2010. She is also the Cyber Industry Specialist for the Virginia SBDC. Welcome, Kiana.
Thank you, Sheila, and welcome, everyone. So today we're going to really be talking about a few fun things that I like, which is about compliance and data and privacy, especially in 2025. As a small business owner, I want to leave you with some tips and some tricks to be able to become compliant, and one, also make sure that you are ready in the event that it's something that maybe your business will grow, and there's some compliance and data privacy things that you should take into consideration. Next slide. So again, this webinar will be pretty straightforward. We'll talk about some cybersecurity compliance and data privacy concerns, especially around 2025, as the landscape is ever so changing, but certain things that are being put in place and certain things that you can put in place to be proactive for your small business. At the end, we'll take some questions and I'll leave you some contact information. If there's something in the webinar that isn't covered, or maybe you have something that's very unique to your organization that you want to talk about more in depth, we'll leave you some contact information and some links and resources to kind of help you get started as well. Next slide. So a little bit about myself. I've been in the cybersecurity and IT industry for about 20 years. I'm a small business owner. I've also founded a nonprofit. I've worked in government. And so I understand a lot about compliance, data privacy for even small businesses, medium-sized businesses, large businesses. So I understand a great landscape of it. And so my goal today is to be able to help you as a small business owner be able to have some knowledge to be able to take back to your organization and to create these things, either things that you may be already doing or things that you can probably enhance in your organization. Next slide. So again, we'll leave you with some best practices, and then we'll talk a little bit about some compliance and data privacy, especially in 2025. Next slide. So first question I always get when we start these type of webinars is, why does cybersecurity matter for my small business? Well, if you haven't been watching the news, cyber criminals are definitely targeting all businesses, but they're also now targeting small businesses. And one reason is because most small businesses have very limited security resources. There's been a lot of recent surveys out there that said 43% of all cyber attacks now target small businesses, and that number is increasing daily. What they're trying to recover is everything from financial information, but sometimes even to get to even larger organizations that maybe you support, or maybe some trusted providers or service providers that you're using in your organization. There could be a plethora of reasons why they're targeting your small business. But one thing that you can do regardless of your size is to be proactive and also have some things in place to be able to, one, as you're thinking about compliance and cybersecurity or even data privacy, especially if it's something that you're using with personal information, sensitive information, anytime you're using the healthcare information, if you're processing credit card information, you want to be able to put some things in place so you can avoid some fines. You don't want to lose your reputation or have some very large financial recovery costs based on you being hacked or some things being leaked from your organization. You want to be able to build that trust. You want to be able to stay competitive and make sure that you ensure your long-term success as you're growing your small business. Next slide. So let's get right in. A few cybersecurity and privacy regulation that you're seeing really increase in 2025. There are some things that you might want to know. If you're in the federal space, the FTC safeguard rules, if you're doing, again, medical, HIPAA, GLBA, more about financial, then there's also some state laws, and this will be pertinent to your organization. So let's step back a little bit. One thing that you can do as a small business owner is first assess the different risks for your environment. Then start looking at what things that you need to put in place. Is it something that's going to be on the federal landscape? Is it something that's more statewide? Will it be something that's more global? For example, if you're going to be handling international data, what does that look like? Things that you can put into place, or you may already have in place. If you have some information that you're processing, can you use encryption? Do you have that in your organization? Is that something that you need to implement? What different access controls can you put into place? Access controls basically says who can get access to what portion of certain things within your organization. It could be something that you put together like a user group, or it can be things that you want to put together an access list that people give access to your facility during certain business hours or certain times, or things like multi-factor authentication. We're all familiar with using it, where it's another form of authentication that can be sent through another means. It could be via a text message that you set up, or it could be over email, or it can even be sometimes a phone call. Having things in place about what to do in the event of an emergency, if something happens, what are your notification process? If in the event that there is a breach, if you're a party of one, do you know who to call? If you have folks in your organization, do they know who to call? And then also, if you're using different vendors, and this is very important because a lot of small businesses rely on a lot of third-party applications or even relationships. So making sure that even the vendors that you're using in your organization are also compliant is also crucial. Depending on what privacy or data privacy or cybersecurity regulations that you have to adhere to, that also may be a requirement. So when you're doing your risk assessment, don't just look at your organization as a whole. Look at everything on a more holistic standpoint, and look at everything that you're using in your environment. If you're using third-party applications, read their privacy policies, read how they encrypt their data, read what type of access controls that they have. Also implement those within your own security landscape as well. Make sure that you have some form of way that you can contact them. Who will be the main point of contact in the event of the emergency. Even if you're putting together a service level agreement with them, or you have something in place, make sure you read the fine print, because a lot of these regulations will want you to highlight what, when, and how, what you're doing in the event that something happens. And also, one thing that I always say, even if you're putting together a wonderful plan, make sure you're testing that plan. And you can test that plan on an annual basis, or at least whenever a significant change occurs. And that could be if something happens in your organization that may be necessarily a breach or a security concern. Maybe it's something that you want to, strengthen within your organization. Put those changes in place and make sure that if you have to stay compliant with these regulations, that they're always they're all compliant together. Next slide. So essential regulations that you should know. I think we talked a little bit about this. The federal regulations, the FTC safeguard rule basically requires businesses handling consumer information, financial information to implement a written security plan. And what that looks like, it could be a very detailed security plan depending on your organization, or it could just be as simple as a one-pager. It's a living document. It's going to change. It's okay that it changes, right? It's okay that you have some things in place. I like to even take my business plan, and then as I'm putting together my security plan, I'll look and see what, are the key things that I have, or if I have like key personnel or things that I have in place And then I make sure that I put that into my security plan. An example of this, if you're a bookkeeping service and you use encrypted storage, you make sure that you also have secure login systems. So make sure that all of that is within your security plan. If you have a facility and you want people to sign in and sign out, making sure that you have that in your security plan, making sure that people are trained on this security plan. If you're using things like HIPAA is Health Information Portability and Accountability Act. A lot of people may be familiar with it. It is all about protecting patient health information. An example, if you have a small practice and you're using healthcare data and you want to control access to who has access to that data, think about yourself as the patient. I always say when I'm thinking about HIPAA, when I go into a doctor's office and a doctor and I'm filling out the form and they're collecting all of this information, you want to ensure that that information that you're putting down and that you're giving over to that facility, you want to know that it's being locked up in a locker that's secure, that there is some type of control access to that data. So think about that if you're the practice that needs to put something together, or if you're someone on the other end as the patient. So think about that. If you have those regulations that you have to put into place, how would that work out for you as the one that's needing to secure the information, and who needs to have access to that as well? Again, another one is GLBA, which is also a very popular one, especially with financial institutions. It explains how they share and protect your customer data. For example, a loan provider must notify clients of data practices and secure records. You've probably seen this over the last few years, especially if you apply for a loan, they'll send you over like a privacy policy, or they'll send you over some, this is how we're going to be processing your data. This is all because they have regulations that they have to adhere to. If you are that financial institution or you're a person that is processing loans, this is also a regulation you definitely need to become familiar with, because it also helps you understand how to share that data, how to protect that data. And even you're starting to see this even more with, even if you're not a financial institution, if you're handling any type of financial information, this is great to just put into place. Even if your business is like, you may say, I only have a few clients now, put it in place, put together that written security plan, make sure you're adhering to those regulations, and then leave room to grow as your organization is growing. As your organization is growing and you're bringing in more clients, you're bringing in more employees, make sure that you're always updating that plan as well. Next slide. So some key cybersecurity compliance requirements to help you comply with some of these laws. As a small business owner, again, I think we talked about this earlier about encrypting sensitive data. Use tools that can encrypt your files at rest and in transit. And what that means, if you have files that are on your desktop or your laptop, how do you encrypt those files? Who has access to those files? If you have employees that are sending out sensitive information, do they understand how they're supposed to send that information? So how they're encrypting that information while it's in transit. It can be as simple. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I know there's a lot of different tools and applications out in the marketplace, but it could be as simple as you putting together an email, putting a password on a file, not sending that same password within the body of that email, maybe sending it through another medium, maybe through another email, or maybe on a cell phone, or even I like to pick up the phone and actually give the person on the other end the information so I can make sure that they received it. And then I can make sure they received it, and I make sure that the information that I'm providing them is on a different a method. So those are things that you can do that doesn't cost anything. It's very low cost. It's just putting together a security practice or a best practice as well. Again, those access controls, limited data only to necessary users. I can't stress that enough. I know sometimes even as a small business owner, you have people wearing so many different hats and we have so many different things that we're doing, and we want to get access to everyone. Sometimes just because you want to make either their jobs easier, or maybe you want to make the process easier. If you have people that are working on very sensitive information, you need to have some way to be able to limit the data that they're accessing and make sure that only users who need that data has access to it. If not, you can also enable things like multi-factor authentication as well as another means to be able, as an access control that you can put into place to be able to be compliant with some of these security data privacy compliance requirements as well. Again, we talked a little bit about this. I can't emphasize this enough. Making sure you have a clear plan for informing your customers, even people that you do business with, in the event that a breach occurs. You'll be surprised that a lot of something happens, and then you'll find out maybe through another party that something happened to your information. You know, I always say put myself as the end user or the customer. As soon as a data breach occurs, you want to be notified. You want to know what happened. How can I protect myself? I've had an incident that happened maybe a few weeks ago where I received a letter in the mail, and it said that my information was leaked through a third-party application. It wasn't necessarily the application that I was using, it was through a third-party source. And they gave me a very clear plan on what to do. And one was to freeze my credit. Another was they gave me like a free credit reporting for a year. And then they gave me some other information about what to do with that application that I was using. Very clear-cut instructions on what to do. That is an example of a great plan. And they sent out, you know, the information to their customers, and it was in a very timely manner. And I was able to follow those steps, you know, step by step. So think about that as you're putting together your plan. As simple as something like that, it saved me a lot of heartburn of knowing that, you know, I don't want to be a victim of identity theft, because that can also be very costly as well. So think about that as you're putting together your plan. And then again, make sure your third-party service providers, if you're using some cloud platforms or payroll apps, follow these privacy standards as well, because that's very important. Because you, even as the end user or the one that's, you know, using this service, if you're breached, you also are a part of, you know, them having to clean up what's going on as well. And then, but you have an obligation to your customers as well. Next slide. Again, we talked about this in the beginning about risk management. It's very, very important as you're thinking about data privacy. It kind of goes hand in hand, managing your risk. What practical steps, what best practice can use? Are there affordable things that you can use in your organization? You can use things like password managers, or you can just have a very strong password policy. You can use multi-factor authentication. You definitely can use things like endpoint protection to be able to manage your risk, and also as a way to stay compliant. One thing that you can do that is very low cost, no cost some time at all, is building that security first culture. What that means, if you you know, make your employees or the folks that you're working with, make it an environment where they feel like they can come to you to report things in a timely manner, empower them by reporting. You know, I also like to do rewards. And the rewards don't have to be anything monetary, but it could just be a simple, you know, a kudos or something to say thank you for alerting me of this as soon as it happens, so that I can follow the checklist and that we can, you know, minimize risk to our environment. So by building that in your environment, well, you'll definitely see a way to empower your people to report in a timely manner. Why this is important? Because depending on some of the regulations, you could be fined. There can be lawsuits. You can lose your customer trust, and it could be a major business disruption to your organization. So it's, you know, as a small business owner, I understand we don't want to pay fines. We definitely want to deal with lawsuits, and we definitely don't want an interruption when it comes to our small business. Next slide. So again, the tools, the culture, being compliant, it's the same thing. Making sure that you are putting these things in place will be very important for you and your organization. Next slide. So again, I know I went through a lot very quickly, but remember, you know, cybersecurity is an ongoing effort. It may seem like, you know, a lot when you're first getting started, but there are a lot of great resources and tools out there to help you put together that written security plan, to be able to help you do things like incident response and disaster recovery and what to do in the event that something happens, safeguarding your business, protecting your customers, and staying ahead of these evolving threats. A lot of the threats are going to be very unique to your organization. So understanding what risks are involved with your organization or with the customers that you serve are very crucial of you staying safe and you staying secure. We have a few resources that we can also give you as well to get you started. I think it's some on the next slide. Yeah, so CISA's a great organization. They have a whole cyber essential starter kit to kind of help you put together that security plan that we discussed earlier. NIST also has a great cybersecurity framework. It's a quick start guide to kind of help you get into the mindset of what to do in the event of you staying compliant and thinking about data privacy and how it relates to your business. It doesn't have to be something grand. It can be, started with a one pager and things that can grow over time. FTC also has a small business cybersecurity resource that is great. They also have Cybersecurity Toolkit has a great toolkit for small business. So there are a lot of resources out there that can help you put together this plan, help you to be able to test this plan, help you to be able to keep up with all of the evolving threats. I like to do also Google alerts that are very specific to my industry, where I'll get an email update about things that are happening in real time. That way that I can stay proactive. That way I can be able to go back and look at my plan and say, okay, I'm noticing that there's a trend of phishing attacks. So maybe there's some conversation I need to have with my security manager about putting together more training as we're thinking about phishing attacks. Maybe it's time for us to, implement that in our weekly staff meetings. Maybe it's more of a conversation where we can actually do an exercise, because outside of having a conversation, a lot of times it's about, putting together little exercises within your organization to test your security posture and areas where you can make improvements for you and your organization. Next slide. So any questions? I know we went through a lot very quickly.
Okay, we don't have any questions in at the moment, but if you all have questions, please type them into the Q&A box. You can pick Kiana's brain while we have her here live. I'm sure there's something that's come to mind, right?
And a lot of times I think, and as you're starting to think about data privacy and even cybersecurity as a whole, it's going to be very unique to your small business, right? So it won't be the same if you are doing, pharmaceuticals versus if you are processing financial records. But there are certain things that will always be the same. I always like to look at cybersecurity like a house. The foundation of the house necessarily doesn't have to always be the same design, but it all has the fundamental things about just keeping the foundation safe. So one thing that you can do, regardless of the industry that you're in, is look at your current risk in your environment. Look at ways that you can put together protection mechanisms to support the foundation of your business. So just how you put together a business plan, think about that as you're putting together a security plan. That's why I said from the beginning, I always take my business plan as I'm writing my security plan, because I know what I set out for my business, those are the foundational things. These are things that I'm trying to protect. So think about it like even when you first built your home or you started putting valuables in there, then the protection mechanism may have changed, right? You may necessarily didn't need a safe when you were just first building, but now that you bought some valuables, you want to put together a safe. The safe is now maybe a form of an access control, right? Because not everybody even knows the safe is there, one. Two, not everyone has access to the safe, and you have it somewhere where you can get access to it. Maybe you have a PIN that you can use. It's the same type of concept when you're thinking about risk, cyber, and securing your infrastructure.
Great. Okay, so we have a question. Let's see, are compliance requirements only for those specific industries you mentioned? Am I supposed to report to someone? Even to get a website seems risky because I don't have a security plan in place.
So it's no. So those are just example of some compliance trends that you're starting to see more as regulations are evolving for those industries. So HIPAA always because you're thinking about medical, Graham because you're always thinking about financial money. There's a lot of things that before traditionally banks you would just go into the bank and withdraw your money. Now you're doing a lot of online banking. There's you can actually access your account online. So there's a different security mechanisms that have been put in place on those particular industries that are making them more compliant. So that, and this is really because of things that are happening sometimes in real time, right? So as the evolution of technology, cybersecurity is like right behind it. I always say that they're like the perfect married couple. So as technology evolves, cybersecurity is right behind it because as you start evolving and putting new things in place, you're going to have to think about how to secure those things. Don't feel like it's so like it's a spooky thing that you can't just implement or do. So you can put together a website. There are great website applications out there that have security things built in that you can use just to get started. And that can be things that even sometimes they'll even help you put together the website that is compliant to your industry needs. So there's some things that you can do that's out there on the marketplace. So it's, don't feel like you can't grow your business or evolve your business without having a plan in place. It's no different than when you put together your business plan. The business plan is always going to be changing, but you know what you wanted when you first started. It's the same thing with cybersecurity. So don't be afraid to get started, but also just do your research is what we're saying. More so look at what risks are involved, what things you need to be compliant with, because that's going to dictate what, when, and how you report, who you report to, if you even have to do any reporting. Because sometimes reporting can be based on your organization size. It could be based on what type of data that you're using, what things that you need to protect. If you're only processing small claims versus if you're processing a larger claim that have more privacy information, that's all going to change based on your business as it evolves. So the way that you can stay proactive is to put together a plan that leaves room that you can also evolve with those evolving threats as they come along. So I hope I answered your question, but yes.
So we have some more questions that have dropped in. So we have an attendee who said, I read the WSG piece last week about long con and AI voice clone of a trusted person. Family member was the example, but it could be anyone. My
Yes.
security plan includes phishing threat mitigation, but this seems more complicated. Also, if this type of phishing happens to me, but I don't fall for it, who do I report it to?
So great question. So there are, as AI, I love AI, but as AI evolves, there's going to always be mischievous or even sometimes nefarious people out there that want to use it for, the worst side of it. There are a lot of AI tools out there that can definitely clone voices. You're starting to even see deep fakes. I don't know if you're familiar with deep fakes, where you can have actual video that looks, you can look at with your eyes, you can see, hey, that is my favorite celebrity, and they're saying something that seems a little off. And it's very sometimes hard to even tell because it's so close to what you're seeing with your physical eyes. As you're putting together your security plan and you're thinking about how to mitigate those type of phishing threats, you can just start with the basics. And the basics can be, if you receive something from a source that may seem like a trusted source, use things like validating that particular email that you received really came from that original source. I'm old school. If I receive something, let's say it's from an HR department and it needs my immediate response on something, and it needs me to give them something that usually brings a red flag, I'll pick up the phone and I'll validate, did you send me this email, or did you do X, Y, and Z? And, and then I always use a caution. If it's something that's an emergency and I just received it randomly and they need something like tomorrow or they need something right now, that's a red flag. So those are the type of things when we talk about putting together exercises with your organization. Practice that. If you receive something, look at the body of the email, make sure it's coming from a source that you recognize. If not, pick up the phone. What do you do? Is there another way that you can contact them before you click and give them the information? Validate who's on the other side of that. So there's the little things that you can do to even just combat some of the things that are happening. But also, again, do your research, even as you are thinking about how to put together something for your organization. Don't let things like AI and things that are, that we're seeing coming out in the news be distractors for us actually evolving with technology, because they're great tools that you can use. So don't let that be the reason why you don't use them.
Great. So here's kind of, this will be a plug for our next webinar, but I'll let you touch on it a little bit. Is there something like insurance that we can buy to protect yourself against financial loss in the case of a security breach?
Yes, there are a lot of new instruments out there as far as insurance. There are things that you can buy for you as a small business owner. There are things that may be within your policy now that you have. So I would first, if you have small business insurance, contact your rep, find out, have them read to you, the different protections in the event that there is a breach for your organization, what's the coverages for financial loss. If your coverage does not have it, look for some quotes. Also talk to some other small business owners within your industry to see what they're using, but also just find out, always get 3 quotes and see, first determine what you need, because if you call sometimes and you cold call, they're going to try to sell you everything under the hood, right? So make sure you as a consumer know exactly what you need for your industry. Let's say in the event that something does happen, and say, okay, if I got $50,000, what does that look like? If I got $100,000, what that looks like? So start small, because I know as small business owners, we want to make sure we are being very budget friendly, but it's definitely a great resource and tool that you can use. I have it for my small business. I recommend it for a lot of small business owners. I don't have one insurance company that's better than the others, because it's all depending on your industry and what your budget is. But I definitely would start with your current coverage, see if you have something available, see if they have something that they can add, additional to if you don't have it, and then also get 3 other quotes to see, if they're giving you the best price versus someone else.
So this next one, the question is, how about CPRA?
So CPRA, you're talking about the California Privacy Rights Act?
Yeah, I'm not sure if, Barath, if you can confirm that, if, yes.
Yes, okay, yes. So that's again, that's an example of a local regulation that's definitely about expanding your consumer rights, making sure that you have a right to accurate information. It also limits the use of disclosure of sensitive personal information. So it also gives you an option to opt out of any automated decision making of technology. Great regulation. A lot, depending on if you're the vendor that have to put it into place, there are definitely some resources out there to help you put together a way to be able to protect your organization and the customers that you support. If you are using a third-party application that also is needs to adhere to this as well, make sure that you put some things in place if you have like a service level agreement of how you want them to handle that. So there are some great resources out there, but that's a great example. I think we talked about some federal regulations, some state-specific regulation, and also there can be things like international ones as one out there as well. So there's a plethora of ones out there. You definitely just have to figure out how you can incorporate those regulations within your organization and putting together that security plan on how to outline what to happen in the event that there's a breach.
Let's see. Can you talk about transferring risk to other vendors like Amazon or your website company?
So risk can be, and the word transfer is kind of tricky, right? Because even though you're using third-party applications and they do have a service level agreement that gives some protections for you as the consumer. But I always say, if you're the one providing the service to your customers, they're not calling your third party application, or they're not calling your third party vendor that you use. They're going to call you, right? So making sure that you understand as a small business owner, how that risk, or how that, in the event that something happens, your responsibilities for the data, or your responsibility for your customers' information, making sure you have things in place alongside with your third party application is very key as well. Definitely read the privacy policies, definitely read your service level agreements. If you have a rep, that could be a conversation that you can have with them as well, to say, hey, where does my responsibilities and your responsibilities pick up, and what do I need to do to implement something in between? Because again, if your site goes down, they're not going to call the third party application. They're going to call the website company. They're going to call you, right? So think about that as you're thinking about risk, and who, what, when, and how to transfer that as well.
Let's see. How AI can play key role in cybersecurity? I guess it's how does it?
So AI can be a great resource. It definitely has a lot of information. It can help you put together these plans that we're talking about. It can help you put together for instance, if you're using, I'll just throw one out there, maybe like ChatGPT, and you want to find out, specific cybersecurity risks for your organization, you can simply type that in and it will give you information that you can use. You can take it a step further to say, hey, can you put together a draft security plan on what it will look like for my organization? And it may give you 90% of what you need, but there are going to be some unique things that are very specific to your organization that you can kind of plug in as well. So it's a great resource that you can use. They have videos, they have different examples, they have information, just no different than, I always look at it like, remember when life before Google, and then life before YouTube, right? Once we did have it as something, as a resource, we went to Google. Everything was Google this, Google that. I have a 12-year-old nephew that always tells me, oh, Titi, you can find anything on YouTube. YouTube is like the best thing in the world. So, right. So that's how you can use AI tools, is the same way that you've used Google or YouTube in the past.
So Amanda, one of our attendees, Amanda, has shared a resource. It's a .org. They do accredited certifications in cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
She's not in that profession. She took their free course for the intro certification,
Mm-hmm.
Act with Value. And maybe you know about this one, Kiana, including creating, do you see it?
Yes.
It's www.isc2.org.
Yep, icsquare.org. Great organization. It's the CISSP is a very popular one too, but they have a lot of different professional certifications that you can take. But they do also, to Amanda's point, they also do have a lot of great resources. They have a lot of information about cybersecurity as a whole. They have a lot of different templates and webinars that you can take. Thank you, Amanda. That is actually a great resource if you're looking to get started with something for your organization, or if you're looking to even become, because I know, again, I say it's a small business owner, we wear many hats. You may be the cybersecurity professional for your organization, right? So IC Squared is a great resource, another resource that you can take advantage of. And some things, they have things that are complimentary. I don't like to use the word free, that also can help you as you're trying to navigate the new cybersecurity risk, especially as it's ever changing in 2025. But yes, thank you, Amanda. It's a great resource. I second that.
Fabulous. Okay, we don't have any other questions. We do have a few more moments or minutes here. So if someone has a question, please go ahead and drop it into the Q&A box.
Yes.
And Kiana, did you got anything?
Yes, I was going to say, so again, we also, I'll give us a shameless plug. SBDC does a wonderful job with providing information about cybersecurity. We have our own dedicated website just for these type of topics. We also have links to upcoming webinars or past webinars that you can go back that may be more specific to your industry. We also have a lot of resource partners on there that you can use and utilize as well to help you put together these great templates that we talked about earlier. So definitely take advantage of that. But again, with the slides, we'll also send out just a little one pager that has some more information and some other links and resources that you can take advantage as well. So always say use everything that is available to you. And then when you do have to spend money, you can spend money on things to maybe enhance it or maybe to bring in, places where you're like, I've done as much as I can do. I need some help, right? So take advantage of them. They're definitely there to help you as a small business owner. They've definitely helped me as I was growing my business. And so I definitely say take advantage of them. They're there for you. That's the whole purpose.
Right. Kiana, thank you so much. And thank everyone who attended today. As a reminder, you are going to receive an email with a link to this recording and to the slides and a resource sheet that Kiana has put together for us. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. And that's also where you can find the on-demand videos. You can go back and look at the other cybersecurity videos there. This webinar and other SBDC resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. We do have to see you at our next session. And I'm going to say one more thing here is that we're trying out a new poll to see how we're doing and how we can help you in the future with our webinars. So at the end of this session, you should see a survey pop up. So we did not interrupt during the session. If you could please take that, that will help us for future webinars to make sure we're taking good care of you. So I want to thank everyone again for attending, and we will see you next time. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.